Investing in a 401k versus investing in a general stock market. Which one should you invest in and why? Which one's going to make you more money over time? Here's my answer to that. We'll start with the 401k and then make our way to the stock market and then compare the two. And we'll go over the pros and cons along the way. So a 401k is a retirement savings plan that's offered by employers in the United States. So if you work for Walmart, for example, then Walmart would be the one offering you the option to invest in a 401k. So a 401k allows employees to invest a certain amount of their pre-tax salary into a special retirement savings account. This retirement savings account has a couple different tax advantages and tax breaks that other accounts don't have. So that's the first pro on the list. You get to invest with pre-tax income, meaning that you won't pay as much tax per paycheck if you consistently invest through a 401k each month. So this is similar to how you would get a tax break by paying interest on a mortgage. 401ks do have one main drawback over the regular stock market, which is that you're limited to a certain amount of money that you're allowed to actually put into that 401k each month. The maximum amount of money that you can put into your 401k each year is set by the IRS, and that amount changes every year. As of 2023, that current limit is $22,500 per year. So that's the maximum amount of money that you can contribute to your 401k each year. Which, don't get me wrong, 22 grand is still quite a bit of money to be able to invest every year, but the stock market doesn't have any limit at all. So if that's a concern to you, that's a pro for the stock market and a con for the 401k. So the money that you contribute to your 401k grows tax deferred, meaning you don't pay tax on the contributions or their investment gains until you withdraw them later during retirement. So simply put, if you have $100,000 in your 401k and that account naturally grows to $120,000 on its own, you don't pay tax on that $20,000 increase in value, which is obviously different than if you were to make $20,000, say, through work. You would have to pay an additional amount of tax on that extra $20,000 that you earned. So that's what they mean by tax deferred, because you don't pay any tax until you withdraw it in retirement. All right, another con for the 401k. If withdrawals are made before the age of 59 and a half, those early withdrawals might be subject to penalties or tax. So this isn't always the case, but for the sake of this video, if you try to take money out of your 401k before you turn 59 and a half, you're going to have to pay some sort of tax and some sort of penalty for doing so. So don't plan on getting sick or doing anything expensive before the age of 60. So another big pro for the 401k, if your employer offers it, that is. And that's the employer or company match, which literally just means that your company will invest a certain amount of money into your 401k as long as you continue to do so. And that's called an employee match. So for example, if I put in $5, then maybe they put in $5. But only up to a certain percentage or total dollar amount. So like we said earlier, you can put about $22,500 into a 401k each year, but most companies don't have the money to fully match your contribution, right? So they're not gonna put in a full $22,500 just because you did so. So they will eventually reach a limit at some point, say $5,000 for example. And at that point, you've basically maxed out the amount of money that your company will put in, meaning that you're back on your own to investing. Either way, this is technically free money in the sense that the only action that you have to take to get this additional contribution or free money is just sign up to invest in a 401k and then ask your company if they offer a 401k match. So that's the 401k summarized, and I'll leave that stuff up on the board so that you can compare the two. Moving to the stock market, and subscribe if this is helpful so far. So the stock market is just a spot where companies all keep a portion of their company's value, and they sell this value so that they can raise money from their shareholders so that they can use that money to spend it elsewhere. Meaning, if a company decides that they want to raise money for their business, they can sell a portion of their company, aka their stock, to their shareholders or investors. These investors are called shareholders. So if the company or companies that you invest in do well, the overall value of the company increases, which means the value of the stock that you own also increases. For example, if you bought $1,000 worth of, say, Tesla stock in March of 2020, that $1,000 stock would now be worth roughly $8,240. So that's the power of making long-term investments. If you had invested $100,000 back in March of 2020, that $100,000 would now be worth roughly $840,000. So that's how the stock market works in a basic sense. Company sells some part of its company to shareholders. Shareholders hope that the company improves. When the company improves, the shareholders' value is now increased. Everybody makes money, right? You pick a company or a group of companies that you think will do well in the next coming years, and you give them some of your money so that they can use that money to make smart business decisions, right? Maybe they do better marketing, or they pick a different CEO, or they manage their products better. Doesn't really matter. The point is, they take your money, they do something with it, and hopefully the company becomes more successful. Once the company becomes more successful, its value is higher, which then means that the stock price is higher, which means that your stock that you own is now worth more money. So you and the company have now made money. Now, usually the increases in stock value aren't anywhere near as dramatic as like Tesla, for example, but the same concept applies. So there's two general ways to invest in the stock market. You can either invest in an individual company like Tesla, for example, or you can invest in a group of companies through something like an index fund, which just groups the companies together and you buy a small piece of all of those companies at the same time. For example, the S&P 500 index fund is, as the name implies, just a grouping of the Fortune 500 companies. And like I said, you're buying a small piece of all 500 of those companies. So you're really banking on just the economy in general doing well, so that all of those 500 companies have an increase in value. So if you buy one share of an S&P 500 fund, you're buying one share of all 500 companies. So the S&P has historically returned somewhere between an 8 and a 10% return each year, and has done so for decades and decades. So while you're not going to get a 6 billion% return on an index fund, like you might on Tesla or some rapid growing tech company, you also won't have the volatility that you would if you just stuck to investing through single stocks. While Tesla probably isn't going to go out of business in the next 10 years, it's still a lot more likely to go out of business than all of the other Fortune 500 companies put together. So to tie it all together here, your tolerance for risk is really the answer for which avenue you should take to invest in. And obviously this is not financial advice, I'm just an idiot on YouTube, but to put it in simple terms, if you want massive returns, and you understand that these massive returns also come with a pretty large risk, then investing in single stocks might make more sense for you. But if you want to play the more slow and steady game and take the more traditionally wise approach, then an index fund or something similar to that would probably be the best approach for you. Alright, so those are the two different ways to invest in a stock market, but we need to further compare it to the 401k now. So which approach should you actually take? Obviously, it depends is going to be the real answer here, but I'm not going to make a whole video about this and not at least try to answer the question, so here it goes. If you're relatively young and you plan on working a standard 9-to-5 job over the long term for, say, 40 years or so, the standard 401k approach is almost always going to be the better option. With the tax advantages and the possible employer match, you could pretty easily have over $5 million in your retirement account by the time you got to retirement age. And even more than that if you're able to actually max out your full contribution every year for the whole duration. Here's roughly what your 401k would look like if you maxed out the account for 40 years straight. Now for the stock market. If you don't think you're going to be working for very long, or you own a business and you don't have an employer to actually offer you a 401k, then investing in the stock market might make more sense for you. There's no limit to how much money you can put into a stock account, and like we mentioned, there's no fee or penalty for withdrawing your money at any time. Not to mention, if you think you might be having some sort of big expense or something come up soon, you don't want to be forced to wait until retirement age to actually have access to that money that you invested. So that's another potential reason to stick to the stock market if you're a business owner or somebody with a lot of unplanned expenses. So which one should you choose? So generally, you should consider using a 401k if your employer offers it. 401ks just offer a convenient way to invest, especially when it's combined with an employer match. And 401ks also help people stay disciplined with investing because it's just coming out of your paycheck every month. You can just say you want to contribute like $500 per month to your 401k, and that money will just come out of your paycheck the same way that tax would. So you won't ever even see it, which is a major benefit if you're the type of person to spend all your money at once. Obviously, the stock market is a bit more individualized, and if you want more control over your money, and when you can withdraw it, then the stock market could make more sense for you. So to give the simple answer, if you plan on being an employee for a company from now until the age that you retire, investing in a 401k is probably going to be the best bet for you. Unless you're making a ton of money every year, that $22,500 that you can invest each year is more than most people are even going to be able to invest. And if you have the means to put more than 22 grand in investments every year, I would still probably invest in a 401k in most situations. Just put the excess money that you have left over into something else, like either paying down your house faster, or investing into a Roth IRA or a regular IRA, or just investing in the general stock market, or just blowing all your money on crypto. There's a bunch of great videos out there that talk about investing in an IRA and investing in a Roth IRA, but I'm not going to cover that in this video. I don't want it to be information overload, but it's something to look into, especially if you think you're going to contribute more than that max of $22,500 per year. Then you can just have another avenue to invest in. Either way, it's going to come down to how long you plan on working, your overall tolerance for risk, and then how big your current salary is. Hopefully this was able to clear up some of the gray area of what a 401k is and what the stock market is and which avenue you should pursue. I appreciate you watching the video until the end, and if you're still here, consider subscribing. These videos do take a fair bit of effort to actually put together, but I do like making them, so I don't mind. Thanks for watching. Click on another video. Goodbye.